Raanan is fat and he's a Jew. He'll tell you something that you already knew. Your favorite movie sucks. Your favorite movie sucks. American Beauty or Forrest Gump. Your favorite movie sucks.
All right, we are back with another episode of Your Favorite Movie Sucks. This is an exciting one. We have the guy behind the curtain, the guy who does the jingle.
Oh, yes.
I feel you trying to remember. Like, you're like, what?
Well, I was like, I don't produce this show.
This is an exciting, this is big for all our many fans. This is the guy, the guy who does the jingle in the beginning. I have him, Tommy McNamara, great comic and music
man.
Music man. Great comic and music man all around. By the way, do you know the Music Man?
I was one of my first creative things was being Winthrop in an adult's production
wow.
of The Music Man as a child.
I want to talk about this for a second. I try to go to the movie right away because if I don't, people in the comments are like, "Get to the fucking movie." And but I do. Just bear with me. I just want to say one. Can I say one thing about The Music Man?
Yes.
It's a very funny story. And then we'll get into the movie. We're doing Hereditary today. The Music Man, my friend saw it recently, a regional production. Mm-hmm. And who's the main character is Winthrop?
Wintrop's the little boy.
Okay, who's the Music Man?
I forget his name.
I guess we can just call him the Music Man.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That'll work.
I don't think that's gonna. People are like, say his name, you know. But so he goes to see the production, and they begin and they go, a quick announcement before we begin. The actor playing the Music Man got sick. So one of the other actors in the chorus has agreed today to try to memorize all the lines, and he's the Music Man. If you know the Music Man, the first song is like a billion words,
yeah.
And the guy doesn't know it. So they start doing the show. This is like a real show, and the guy's like, "How'd the song go?"
I don't remember.
And the guy's like,
song, yeah.
And when you go to the thing, and then he just starts going, and da 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 da, and when you go there, da 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 da, and he just starts saying da 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 da. But then the chorus all knows it, so they say it perfectly back to him, and they're just like saying the words, and he's like da 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 da.
I would have loved to see that.
It's just so funny to still do the show and like the hardest thing, right?
And that they didn't have an understudy. It's like since the dawn of theater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we've lost everyone now, so now let's.
Well, it's a good, easy segue because this was Music Man was a huge influence on Ari Aster. You could tell.
I was listening. We like to do this. First, I ask you where you were when you saw the movie. Then we kind of go through the movie, and then we do kind of different perspectives on it. I will say, I was listening to an interview. I love Ari Aster. I love him. I think he's just so visually just incredible. Mm-hmm. There's like an elegance to his directing that I find. It's like Kubrick. There's a symmetry and a intention in every shot that I just find hypnotic. But there was an interview I listened to him recently. By recently, I mean as you were walking up to me. I'm such a comedian. I'm just always used to saying the other week, even though it was like 10 minutes ago. You were like literally walking up. I was listening to the interview. I'm like, the other day. But in it, he tells a story, which I'm like, it kind of perfectly sums up Hereditary. He said, he's talking about one of the influences of the movie, this Peter Greenaway movie. I always fuck up the title, and they're going to fucking get mad at me. But the thief, the cook, the lover, and his wife. Mm-hmm. I probably didn't get that order right. But he said it was his dad scared, the one movie that scared his dad growing up. And his dad told him that. He said it really scared him. And then he said, so I watched it secretly. I snuck it in at 13 and watched it. It really scared me. And then the interviewer goes, "Oh, so what scared? Like, what was so scary about it to you and your dad?" He goes, "Well, I never asked my dad. He didn't know I watched it." And I'm like, that's kind of Hereditary. It's a family where they don't tell their fears to the other people in the family.
For sure.
It's like the perfect It's about a family that just doesn't communicate.
Yes. It is it's such an interesting family drama, like all the horror aside.
All the horror aside, it works like it's like this Manchester by the sea.
Yes, which was one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. Yeah.
And
oh my God.
They're both they both have a similar quality, which is that the horribleness of it is so horrible that you could see some of it comedically just because it's so horrible. There are parts I don't know if this is intention, but there are parts that are just funny and how horrible they are.
Oh, for sure.
Like it's just like like the suffering is so ridiculous. You're like, how do they even?
Well, that's why, I mean, Manchester, people will use that him grabbing for the cop's gun as like a meme now. It is just like insane how sad it is.
There was a Wikipedia. I was reading the Wikipedia for Hereditary. There was one line that was just, it's so funny when a movie's crazy to read the plot on Wikipedia because you just see how. And there was one line just kind of made me think about the how like funny, like insane it is. And it's a problem I had with the movie the first time I watched it, which I've kind of grown to somewhat accept. But here, let me just get this quote out. It just made me laugh because it's like such an insane. It just said, as Peter drives Charlie to the hospital, she leans out of the window for air, and when Peter swerves to avoid a dead deer lying in the road, Charlie is decapitated by a telephone pole. In shock, Peter drives home and leaves Charlie's headless body in the back seat of Annie's car, which Annie discovers to her horror the following morning. And here's the next sentence, the new paragraph. The family's fractured following Charlie's funeral. Oh, are they? Are they fractured? Are they fractured by him letting his mom find...
It's a weird Christmas.
It made Christmas rather awkward about him letting his mom find her headless corpse.
Well, that was the thing about that movie. Like, the first time I saw it was just like, that happening, I was so shocked by, because I saw it opening night, so I heard nothing about what happens, and it was just...
Me too.
I feel like it's so rare. I watch so many horror movies, and it's so rare. Like, obviously, there's crazy kills and stuff.
Yeah.
To be genuinely shocked by something.
Where were you? Like, you saw it in theater? Were you with people?
I was in the theater. Yeah, I was with a couple friends, and we went to one of those, like, it was AMC or Regal, one of the big ones, opening night, packed house, and it was just insane. Like, I've never, like, experienced... I feel like that level of just like everyone had no idea what was going to happen. Just the, like, you could feel the dread of like every person.
Yes.
It was
and there's no laughing. It's not like, or maybe there was.
Well, there was one laugh. And so one of the people I was with was Steve Castillo, who's a comic.
Oh, yeah.
He's told the story before, but in the moment where she says, "I never wanted to be your mother," this one guy in the theater just goes, "Damn."
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's hilarious. Everyone laughed at that.
Oh, there's actually parts that I think are like, but I mean the head falling out. That's not like a kill in like a movie, like a horror movie that you laugh at. Yeah. I saw it in theaters too. I think I remember being alone. I think, and it was like just to paint a sad picture. And it sounds like you were with like every friend you knew, and it's me and the entire Chicago comedy scene.
Both my girlfriends were there.
I remember that head. So to me, I have a term for this. Me and my screenwriting partner have a term. I remember this term. I call it's like a beyonder. It works for comedy and horror. Basically, you set up where the audience knows something fucked up is going to happen, or something funny, and then it goes way beyond expectations.
Yes,
and there's a peculiar type of twist to that to the audience, which is they think they know where it's going.
Yes,
and it goes so it kind of nulls them into not expecting something crazier, which intensifies the shock. In humor, I think the best example of this ever, and probably the scene that I think I've laughed at more than any scene in the movie, which is funny because I try to be such an intellectual. But to me, the funniest scene of every movie is Old School, where they tie everyone's penis on a rope to a brick, and they're like, "Do you trust us that the rope is long enough for?" And you're like, it's not gonna go. It's not gonna just go fine, right? You know, it's gonna be a problem, and so you're ready. But then what happens goes just. To me, just so wildly, like the brick breaks through the sewer. He's ripped out. It strips off his clothes, and he's just fat and naked. And it's just like, to me, that's the comedic version of this, where you're like, all right, I think she got decapitated. I'm not 100% sure. I know something bad's about to happen, but they're discreet about it. They're coy.
Yes.
And they go from coy to showing the head in the worst possible way you could show the head.
Covered in flies. Yeah.
Covered, that's the beyonder factor.
Yes.
The covered in flies, because it's such a beautiful manipulative trick, because you're like, they don't show the head break off.
Yes.
They don't. So it's like, oh, this movie doesn't want to show it. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, quite the opposite. It's like, we didn't show it then because the head didn't look disturbing enough. We'll show it decomposing.
It's such a brilliant choice that he just drives back, I think. If he just stops and calls the cops, it's so much less effective.
It is crazy. It is. That whole part is just...
And hearing the mom scream, you don't see her see it, but you just hear from his perspective.
Incredible. And the fact that, to me, just hearing, when he comes over, you just hear the voice of the mom going, oh, good, they're home. This is where, there is... I don't want to sound, maybe this is not intentional, but there is a comedy in just how horrible it is.
Oh, for sure.
It's just so horrible. And there is, we'll go through the movie each scene by scene, but there is, this podcast was 12 hours long. We'll go through frame by frame, starting with the first. But there is, the horribleness is so horrible.
Yes.
Especially since, that girl already, let's face it. This is a horrible thing to say, but... The movie's kind of creepy because they chose a very ugly girl.
They chose the perfect girl because she's so weird and off-putting before she's a ghost.
It almost tricks you because part of you kind of wants her to die. But they literally, her unattractiveness is definitely part of the aesthetic horror of this movie.
Well, yeah, and then they give her, the big orange sweatshirt, the ugliest possible outfit.
Which is upsetting. It's upsetting if you're that girl to know a big part of people being spooked out is how ugly she is. That basically sets the tone.
Yes.
But, whatever. She's a great actress, and she does a great job. So, all right, let's go from the very beginning of the movie. And the opening shot is... incredible. We can go through it if you want to explain it, the opening shot.
So she does these miniatures, which is the only thing I really remembered from the trailer.
Yes.
It was just it's just about a miniature maker.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be a way bigger factor. But they do this thing where you don't tell until they zoom out that it's a miniature.
Right. It starts with the treehouse in the window, which is a shot that you see over and over again through the movie. Pans through the room, lands on the house, zooms in until it gets into the room, and then the people come out. Which, it is funny. I feel like if some people watching that who didn't know anything were like, well, this is a movie about, miniature people living in a house. That definitely, it was kind of a risk, honestly. I think it's a great image, and obviously it deals with the fact that they're all puppets in this bigger scheme.
Which they end up doing the class. I didn't realize till I rewatched it. They do the classic thing where whenever there's a classroom, they lay out the theme of the movie.
Talk about
That's
that.
the one thing where I'm like, God,
the teacher's
every movie does.
Today
this.
we're going to discuss the themes of Hereditary.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You know what? It is so obvious. Yeah, and this is we'll get to. So anytime you're at a classroom, the teacher's always just telling the themes.
It
of
just
the movie.
happens to be whatever class it is.
It comes to the chalkboard. All the families there. Now let's talk about the themes of Hereditary. Fate. Do you have a choice? Are we all just
Today we're going to talk about the
later,
8 kings of hell.
Yeah. And later when they get to the sacrifice, they talk about I forget what the Greek play, whatever. I forget what, but they're sacrificing someone. So that class is the but there's also another class. I don't know if this is just a joke, but maybe they're just making a joke on the noseness. But there's another class where he's really in the middle of his psychotic break, and the teacher's like, today we're going to talk about the Great Depression.
That seems like a purposeful joke. Yeah.
So the miniature in the house, the idea that you have so much going on there, the idea that we're all just puppets of this bigger, plot or bigger the godless universe or whatever, or a plan. But it's also interesting it connects it to art. She does these, so it's almost like art. To me, I don't know what it felt like to you, but to me it felt like the trauma of life is that we're just kind of in this world without any free will.
Yeah, you're doomed to your fate, kind of, which kind of lets Peter off the hook a little bit.
Lets everyone off the hook.
For sure. Yeah.
Technically it's not.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because free will kind of plays a big part in stories.
Yes.
For sure. There's technically no free will in this story.
Yeah.
Right? It's an interesting, and also it's to me it's the trauma of being that, and then art is recreating trauma. So she's recreating the trauma of being a puppet by creating her own miniatures,
which then she makes the
she literally that part's hilarious, where he's where the father comes in and goes, what if Peter saw this? It's What if you saw it? What if you fucking saw it right now?
He is very measured for what has happened to him.
And then she's just like, what? It's an objective view of the accident.
Objective view of the accident is such a funny line. Oh my God.
So yeah, there's this. So this gets to the nature right away. The puppet thing gets to the nature of like, you watch a lot of horror movies, right? Like,
yes. Yeah.
To me, there's an argument in horror movies about like what's a horror movie versus thriller, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think a big difference usually, like why is, you know, Halloween a horror movie, but not like, let's say, Zodiac or even Silence of the Lambs, which I don't feel is technically a horror movie.
People like classify it as one, but I would agree. It feels like more of a thriller to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'd say the difference is helplessness. In a thriller, it's usually a cop trying to, they're not helpless. They're actually trying to stop the thing, you know?
Yeah.
It'd actually be a horror movie from the bad guy's perspective where the cop's coming for him. But a horror movie is helplessness. And every horror movie works on some degree because there's a little fighting back, but for the most of the movie, it's pure helplessness, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good theory. I like that.
Right? Like, and to me, this movie, you definitely can't think of this movie without Rosemary's Baby.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is the ultimate helpless. There's a plot, and she can't really do anything about it.
You got Satan in there. And
Satan, the witchcraft, you know. I mean, literally it ends with the same. The ending of Rosemary's Baby is Hail Satan. And the big change is Hail Payment.
Hail Payment, yeah.
Rosemary's Baby, have you seen Don't Look Now? I feel like this is another big...
What is Don't Look Now?
That's with Donald Sutherland, where his daughter with the red dress, or the red, what's it called? Raincoat drowns in the beginning.
No.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's by Nicholas Roeg, but... It's the grief of a daughter who died, but then these witches say they can like see the daughter, and the wife starts to believe that the ghost is there. You know?
Okay.
But it's this idea of like the idea of a ghost relieving the sense of like grief, you know?
Yeah.
Though in this movie, none of the ghost parts feel nice. They all seem horrible. Like you're like like that. What like with the kids writing the name on the chalk? You're not like, oh great, she's gonna.
Yeah.
So yeah, helplessness, and this is kind of like a big part of horror, a lack of free will. I mean, there's a plot in this, and it works.
Yes. The cult wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, I do think horror and comedy are very similar for a bunch of different reasons. Like, you know, obviously they're both not respected by critics.
Yep.
But
no, this was.
Yeah. But overall, not respected, you know. I mean, like, she still did. Was she nominated for an Oscar?
No, a lot of people. There was a lot of talk, and people were mad that she wasn't. I agreed with that. I think it's an amazing performance.
It's incredible, but still, even though it was respected, it's actually not respected. It was respected by horror people.
Yes,
it wasn't really respected by the Academy.
But I think it started what happened now with Demi Moore getting nominated. I think if Toni Collette doesn't have this performance, Demi Moore isn't nominated for an Oscar.
She should have really thanked
7 years later. Yeah, she didn't win. Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah, you're right. So the Hereditary did start something horrible. I fucking hated that movie.
I know. I remember we talked about it on Instagram.
Did you like it?
I did like it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, no one's here. You can tell me how you feel, but I guess it is public. But like, horror and comedy aren't respected. They both have the beyonder, the thing I was talking about before. But they're also both, I think, able to say a reality, say a truth about life that would not be stomachable or not be like edible, like in like a drama. Mm-hmm. Like they can both be as bleak as possible, and you're still like, I got my money's worth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it really is just like, because your family has fucked you up, your life circumstances have fucked you up, you are doomed.
Yes,
that is the movie.
There's no sugarcoating.
Yeah.
If you're doing a drama, you have to slap in like some hope at the end, I think, don't you?
For sure.
But like with a comedy, like Dr. Strangelove can just end with the end of the world. Like, this is a movie. Well, no free will, which gets into like the nature of like real. They talk about tragedy in it, but a tragedy it's actually not a tragedy. Like they talk about in the class, a tragedy is someone having free will and having a choice, I believe, and making the wrong choice. On some level, maybe I'm wrong, but like to me, it's absurdity. It's like there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, it's more of a nihilist.
It's just complete.
I do love how bleak it is. Just first scene where you see people, they're just going to a funeral right
Yes,
away. You open with the funeral and you close with the satanic ritual. It's just like
It starts at the most positive, which is just a grandmother's death.
Yeah.
So it goes to the funeral, and what is which?
Well, here's something I picked up on this time that I didn't notice before. One of the things with the grandmother is, did you notice that in one of the miniatures, the grandmother is demanding that she breastfeed the child? I didn't notice that the first time I saw it.
There are so many clues, which I'll be honest, the first time I saw it, I had issues with it. I think my main big issue, I loved the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But my main big issue was I could not believe that the kid gets no counseling. I couldn't wrap my head around that they would just be like, all right, let's keep on moving.
You would even go back to the same school.
Yeah,
you would even go back to school.
It's kind of the Wikipedia thing.
Yeah.
It's they're trying to deal with something that can't be dealt with. I feel like that family wouldn't just keep on going on.
If you were driving a car and your sister's head got cut off, you would not ever have a normal day again.
Right. And also, it's first of all, something they don't go into, which is that the mother must have first thought he cut off her head. What would you think if you you don't?
Because that's not something that happens.
Well,
yeah.
If I drove my sibling home when I was younger, and my mom came into the car later and saw that my sister's was in the back seat with her head off, I think she knew I was sleeping inside. I think she'd think I was a fucking demented serial killer, wouldn't she?
I guess. Yeah, there's really no explanation.
They just gloss it. But I mean, it's not like she'd be it's not like, oh, I know what happened. It's not like she'd be like, oh, you know what I bet happened?
Oh, the Brooklyn Decapitator is out here.
So I feel like there'd be a trial, honestly. I don't know. I feel like that's definitely fleeing a crime scene.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I guess the thing about decapitation, though, is you don't have to be like, oh, he didn't check if she was okay.
Check her pulse.
Because if she wasn't decapitated, you could say he
still could have gone to the hospital. Yeah.
But I guess if someone's decapitated, are you allowed to just leave the crime scene?
Wouldn't it be the best episode of ER if someone just comes in with a decapitated person? They're like, please help, please.
The cocky George Clooney's like, I think I can crack this one. He's just insane. They're just like, get him in here, put him in the ER. And then we're like, dude, his head's off. Don't, I'm not losing another person in here. Get him in there. They're like, what? Oh, that's hilarious. That's so funny. We should do that as a sketch.
Special episode.
Yeah. So that's the part I had trouble, wrapping my head around in the movie the first time I saw it. I was like, there was an irrationality to it, especially since the father is the therapist.
Yes.
And he's just okay with the kid doing no counseling after.
And it's not until he doesn't think of getting him away from the mom until so late in the game too.
He doesn't suggest therapy till late in the game. It's 2 hours into the movie. He's like, you want to see someone?
Post seance, so much is
it's insane. Is that a flaw?
I guess something about Gabriel Byrne though. He's just so reassuring to me in this movie. I think it's his voice and everything. I'm just I trust him for some reason, even though he's not doing the right thing as a dad or therapist.
I talked about this with Casey Shornama. We did Silence of the Land. We just talked about how the great acting makes you accept the craziest situation ever.
For sure.
And this is definitely true here. He is so great, and she seems so grounded in her craziness that at times you the other most ridiculous thing, which I do think, I don't know how this could not have been funny, is when she talks about, it's like a comedy, even though maybe it's not, but when she talks about sleepwalking.
Oh, yeah.
And she talks about it like it's crazy that her son won't look past this, which is insane. She literally goes, yeah, I went sleepwalking. I woke up, I was covered in pain thinner. He was covered in pain thinner. I had a match. And then literally her tone, she goes, I mean, I blew out the match immediately.
Yes. As if she's indignant about it being a big deal. Yeah.
As if she's somehow no longer a threat. It's fine. Sometimes she'll try to kill you while sleepwalking, but she'll blow them out. And then she goes, and he's never let me forget it. How is that not a comedy? How can you? Who doesn't? How could you forget that? First of all,
Oh my God.
it's not just being upset. It's also the fact that I can never trust that I'm safe again in this house.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
like it's like if you try to kill me while sleepwalking, what are we just rolling the die every time we go to bed?
The paint thinner is such a funny specific too. Like not just like trying to light a match. Yeah, it's just like covered in paint.
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Toni Collette
yeah.
says it in such a real way that you're like makes you forget how crazy it is. But you're like, this is insane. And then she says, it's once again. I mean, I've heard Ari Aster talk about this movie, and he says it's like pretty serious. And I don't know, trust the tale, not the teller. You know?
Yeah.
But I do not know how that scene can be taken fully seriously, because then she then goes, the timing was awful too. The timing. What is a good timing for lighting, for covering yourself in paint?
I feel like it has to be comedic because I mean, if you watch Beau is Afraid too,
Yes.
it's like he clearly has such a sense of humor about
And Midsommar is one of the funniest horror movies ever,
for sure.
And have you seen a short film?
I mean, I couldn't get through it. That I drew the line.
If you don't know a short film, it is
what's it? Keeping Up with the
Johnsons.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's something about the
yeah.
Something about Mary or something like
Yeah, there's something about that. Yeah.
Short film, which I think is very good. And actually, someone told me the premise, and I was like, that's the most disturbing thing. But then when you watch it, there is like a Todd, I don't know if you've seen like Todd Solondz's Happiness. There's like a comedic aesthetic to it.
I've never seen
But
that.
it's the opening scene of the short film. It's a great opening scene. It's a kid jacking off, and then the father comes in, and it's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. And the father feels really bad. He was jacking off to a picture, and the father sits down and says, you know, I'm sorry I interrupted you. What you're doing is not shameful. He's just trying to make him feel better. He's trying to make sure that he doesn't have the stigma associated with it because he interrupts him. And then the kid goes, I know. And he's like, seriously, there's nothing wrong with it. And the kid's like, I love you, Dad. And then he leaves. And then you look at the picture, it's the dad, which right away, that's hilarious. I mean, it's fucked up. But the fact that the father's literally just telling him not to be ashamed by the greatest taboo, like... And then the movie, the kid is literally just raping the father.
Yes.
Which apparently when they thought of it, they were like, what's the worst taboo? And I think they got it.
Yep.
Because you're like, he went beyond, I feel like he went beyond the horrors of real life with that. Like, I don't think there's a lot of kids raping their fathers.
It's definitely something I've never heard of. No one in my squad has done that.
But so anyway, so there's always a sense of humor to him, I think, even in this. And the idea that her saying the timing is awful. It's like, when is there good timing for almost lighting your kid on fire and sleepwalking? That means it's almost be worse. It would be better if it wasn't sleepwalking, because then you'd be like, maybe she got better. She has no control over that.
For sure.
He should not be in that house. His acting is great, but how do they continue after that?
Well, if she goes to a couple of Grief Anonymous meetings, she'll
You
get
don't even
through
know
it.
about those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she goes to the movies.
I mean, it's just wild. It's such an interesting thing with him, where he's also such a. I love Ari too, because he's such a sick fuck.
Yes,
and it just gets so. It gets into these ugly emotions we bury deep down, like wanting to kill your kids, like wanting to just this like hatred for people in their family deep down. It's so gross.
But there's something that's so interesting too. Like, one thing I think about this movie is I think some of the scariest parts are just like the horror of your mom being mad at you. Which is like an almost innocent thing where it's like, because that's such a little boy thing where that's the scariest thing that can happen.
Going, mommy.
And it's like your mom not forgiving you doing something so bad your mom doesn't forgive you. It's like, that's the scariest thing.
It's about like a mom who really, the idea of a mom looking at her son hatefully.
Yes, I mean the dinner scene. I guess that face on your face.
Yeah, I mean, this kid's got to have issues with his mom, Ari Aster, right? Between this and Beau is Afraid.
I think so. Yeah.
So far in terms of moms in all his movies, the first mom wants to kill the kid.
Yes,
and tries to kill the kid the entire time. The second movie, the kid kills the parents. And the third movie, the mother once again is
she creates an entire reality.
There's definitely there's also this like Kafka feel to it, where like when you read Kafka, I have a trouble reading Kafka sometimes because there's so much self-loathing, and it's just like the father condemning the son. There's just so much, but it does feel like that when you're like watching real, just horrible, real emotions, but like no sugarcoating.
And there's no there's no release. There's no release.
There's no release. The only release is just that, like, I think the release is just how funny it is that she almost killed him and she's mad that he won't.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so where are we? We're literally in the second shot. So another thing I want to talk about, which goes into the next shot too, in the beginning, is the movie does such an it's about a family just that cannot communicate. And then once the kid dies, they still can't communicate.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's actually said in the movie, if only this could have brought us together. The mother, which is a shitty thing. I feel like that daughter heard that. She'd be like, you know, I don't need me to be decapitated to bring you all together.
Nice moment.
Couldn't we have just done that without?
Yeah.
But what you said?
Well, that is like a thing in real life of like when you hear when like a child dies, like oftentimes the parents get divorced.
Yeah,
like, you know, I feel like that is there's reality in that.
Yeah, the minute a child dies, you're like, my wife's fat. I just realized.
Yeah.
I
thought the black would be slimming.
I'm really noticing all these moles on her. But you see them all. What the movie does so great, because they're not communicating, it becomes this beautifully visual movie where instead of, it's definitely better to make movies about people not communicating, because then you can make a really visual film.
Yes.
If they're communicating, it's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
But you just see them in different spaces. So that the first shot is great with the house, the miniature, revealing that they're all puppets in some bigger scheme, you know. And then the next shot, the shot booms down from the treehouse as the father had just gone to see the son, and now he's going to get to the treehouse to see Charlie. And the camera booms down to the Tony Collette in the car, and you see them all in different spaces, locked away, and the father trying to do what he does, which is bring them all together. But he's in his room, she's in the car, Charlie's in the treehouse. Yeah. It just visually conveys this disconnection, you know, so incredibly well, you know.
It's also such an amazing set. Like, the house is so perfect.
Incredible.
And like cool looking.
I was wondering about that because I'm like, this is the perfect house. Yeah. It's like, it's so spooky, and yet it doesn't feel corny. It feels like a style. Maybe it's, I don't know, I think the movie's set in Utah, or maybe it's like
Utah.
Kind of like a, I guess, kind of like a, what do you call it? Like a ski resort, like, what do you call it? Lodge-like vibe to it. But I mean, there's like stained glass windows. Yeah. I mean, it is spooky, and I
think it started another horror trend too, of like just like movies where they just get one really expensive house.
Yeah.
It's like, how can we only film here?
Yeah. I read, which makes sense, that it was all mostly on a soundstage.
Oh yeah.
And apparently, which is, I mean, makes a lot of sense, and was his intention, that he wanted to create this dollhouse effect, which he does through the whole movie, by having it on a soundstage. Well, they built it so they can create this awesome, like, there's so much symmetry in that house that like I don't know if any real house looks that awesome, but like creating the dollhouse effect. But if you're filming in a real place, you have walls, so you can't always shoot that far back. But if it's a set, you can just have these walls and film from far away, and then you create this feeling of them in a doll's house, which you couldn't do. And you have many wide shots. You see them in this house as if you're looking into a set, you know?
For sure.
So that is this. So you got the first scene. It's almost like those first two shots explain the movie thematically. You have, they're all puppets, and they're all puppets, and also we don't really know what we're seeing is real or not, because the movie, that first shot is like this fucked up thing where you're like, wait, you've already fucked with my head. Like I don't know if I'm watching a set or not. And then the next shot, you see them all in their different houses, their different compartments alone, not communicating with each other. So, I mean, that's just great fucking directing to explain that in two shots.
For sure. In your first movie.
Movie? 2 shots. You had 2 shots that just like capture the feeling on just this visceral level. It's just incredible, you know?
Yeah, it's he's an amazing visual director, and it is crazy to have this be your first feature, where it's like, it's so interesting and there's so much in it.
So much in it.
Yeah.
And it's just like the acting's incredible. I mean, that's the other thing. I love horror movies, but like there's two types of horror movies. One with good acting and one with bad acting.
Yes, for sure.
And there's way more with bad acting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
as someone with a Shudder subscription,
yeah.
I can confirm.
This definitely is in the Rosemary's Baby, Don't Look Now prestige.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what is interesting is that like there is a prestigeness to it. I mean, you have Gabriel Byrne, you have but at the same time, it also has the grossness of like a real gritty horror movie. Like it feels like it shouldn't be mainstream.
Naked Satanists.
Yeah.
So it's got,
But like just decapitate. Like it felt like an awful scary horror movie becoming mainstream in a way. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like it felt grosser. It felt more intense than your typical prestige horror movie, by which I mean like a well-acted
like the A24 horror movies where some of them there's like one or two scary moments.
Yeah,
and
like
it's mostly just a drama.
like we're pretending the witch is scary. It's not that scary.
Yes,
but like this is like terrifying.
Oh yeah,
on a level similar to say like grittier, less prestige horror movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Kind of gets in you where you're like, I don't know if I should have watched that.
Yeah.
There's three types. There's a horror movie you watch, it's like really fun. And there's a horror movie you watch where you're like, I actually want to turn this off, which is that's a pretty top tier. This isn't that.
No,
But it is gets close to it at times. And then there's the third type, the ultimate type, which is I truly regret watching this movie, which I've only had a couple times. Have you had that?
I am trying to think of if there's any, because I'll kind of watch everything. Like,
have you seen Martyrs?
No, and I've read about that as one that
Martyrs is one where it's like I think it's great, but it's a movie where you like, because let's face it, if a horror movie is truly great, you wouldn't just turn it off. Yeah. Every horror movie you sit through is kind of a failure. Martyrs, I regretted watching it after I saw it. I regretted that I now knew this movie.
Oh wow, I might watch that today.
Yeah, it's great. It's the most disturbing movie I've ever seen. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of those movies where when I watched it, I had my finger on the, like, should we turn this off?
Oh, wow.
Especially in the end when they're, like, torturing her. I'm like, I don't know how much more. They get her to break out out of that window, like, at the exact moment where if it went on.
You would have turned it off.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have got to see that great closing shot.
That's true. But this movie, it is, I guess what I'm saying, it's great acting, but it's fucking like disturbing, like a foreign film disturbing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, not like, just like most American, I don't think people were ready for this. I mean, like most American, and not like jump outs, just like, just as an uneasiness the whole time.
I mean, like that scene when the other sleepwalking scene where, he's, Peter's like covered in the flies too. Like, coming out of his mouth. That stuff is so gnarly.
And it's the excessiveness. It's the decomposition of these characters.
Yeah,
it's like people were not ready for that. I mean, look, Get Out is a very fun movie.
Oh yeah,
it's not scary
for sure.
It's not scary.
I thought Us was scary.
Us. No.
Some of the tethered stuff I thought was scary.
Some of it, but the minute they start talking, I'm like, Jordan Peele's the greatest horror director that's not really scary at all.
I mean, Nope is a Spielberg movie.
Yeah. I mean, they're all, I don't know. Look, I don't know what it's like to be black, but it's not. But I
want that on one of those quote images. Raanan Hershberg.
But Get Out, his horror is exciting. He's first tier.
Yeah.
This is an exciting horror movie.
For
similar to like Spielberg,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll see every Jordan Peele movie.
Right. Oh, they're great. I love them.
I think he's 3 for 3. I'll see them all.
Yeah, but they're not like, they don't like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Get Out, was, I can't think of any really scary parts.
Yeah. But I mean, if you did, you'd be racist because it's like that shot where the black guy's just running at him.
Yeah.
But this is like, and The Witch is creepy, I guess, but I'm not like a huge fan of The Witch. I think it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's the lowest of the Eggers for me.
Yeah, I
still think it's cool, but
I mean, it's cool.
The end is cool. Yeah.
But it's I don't know. But this is like, I mean, I don't know. Right away, we get to the next couple of scenes where she's like decapitating animals. That's already pretty.
Yes, yeah,
that's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, the bird head and the
And then you have, I mean, to me, the most interesting, like the scene that really is so like where you really start to see the family dynamic is when she that she's going to a movie and then she goes to a grief.
And the story she's is like,
Which is the first comedic thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
my brother was.
Because they're all like there.
Yeah.
It's like an NA meeting, and someone's like, "I did 400 milligrams of heroin and killed 5 people." It's like, I know we're in this meeting, but this is a little too much.
Well, I mean, in reality, she's such a blessing for everyone else there. They're like,
I
my shit's not that bad.
not that bad. Well, she really wanted a grief. But just the fact, so you have the fact that they're not ever communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in their own little projects. He does his therapy. The kid is just about getting high, you know.
Hey, and there's an interesting thing too of like they talk about how she had no contact with her mom.
Yes.
Which is like, I mean, that's literally
right.
An official saying what they're actually also doing. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is where it gets into. Now, some people have argued about this. I'm interested in your take. The schizophrenia stuff. Now, it's called Hereditary, so obviously one cannot deny the metaphor here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which you're afraid of what's passed down, right?
Yeah.
Mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And that story she tells is bonkers.
Yeah.
It's just like, my father starved to death.
Yeah.
my brother hung himself.
Just one thing after the other. Yeah.
Now, some people think
that it's all bullshit. Is that the theory?
What do you think?
I don't subscribe to that, but
that was the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's. I feel like I hate when people try and do those like alternate readings, and it's just, I don't know.
It's just not there. I mean, like it's not. You see her like. You see these things. You're just putting stuff in the movie that's not technically there.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's clearly hinting that this is the metaphor, which is that's what you need. You don't need it to like actually be schizophrenia. You need it to be a metaphor for schizophrenia, you know, or a metaphor for anything you're scared of being passed down from a person, you know, a loved one, a mother or father that you're like, is this crazy, horrible shit within me, you know?
Yes.
But like some people are like, it's all in her head. It's like,
yeah, I don't like that.
No. Because also like, what is he imagining her beheading herself?
Well, there's that post-credit scene where she wakes up and goes, "What a crazy dream!" And they have a nice family trip to Disneyland.
I never like the even when they do that in the movie, I hate it. Like I hate Fight Club when they're just like it was all in his head. It's like we already know that he metaphorically represents like the id of this guy.
Yeah,
you don't have to fucking be like this thing you're watching is fake is even faker than you think.
It just sells everything out and then,
But that part in the beautifully filmed, by the way, in that grief count is just that first like this is too much. That's got to be fun. Like I mean, he says it's like treating grief seriously. Ari Aster in interviews, I don't, but like it's like there is something where like you do get the sense that the people in the circle are like, I think you need to go to like a different kind of group.
Some sort of super
like,
grief.
Yeah, it's super grief, like insane. Like you need to go to insane grief, you know. You're talking about heroin and a weed.
You're in normal people grief.
Because she's just like, she's like, my mother had dissociative identity, and then my father starved himself to death, and then my brother hung himself, and then my mother went crazy. But so what is that? Oh, so that we have the classroom, I think, after that, right?
Yes, yeah,
which we talked about already. This
yeah, they lay out.
Did you not like that? Do you find it? Like,
I just see that so much in movies, and ever since I started noticing it, now every time there's a classroom scene, I'm bracing for it.
Yeah,
you know,
it is in almost every.
And it just seems like Ari Aster is better than that. You know, it's just like you don't need to do this. This is what like '90s movies do.
I know.
You know?
I will say though, you're right. But I will say one thing that maybe gives it a saving grace is that often it's in movies where you kind of already know the themes.
Yeah,
this is a little premature, so maybe it's
for sure.
So maybe it might seem more on the nose on repeated viewings because if you're watching it that first time. You're probably. I mean, I guess you would know if you're savvy to that, but it's not. It doesn't seem on the nose yet because you haven't really seen much.
And I also don't think if they didn't have that scene, I wouldn't be thinking about free will versus destiny throughout the movie. So I guess it is kind of good to implant that.
It's like more. This is my justification. It's foreshadowing as opposed to just telling the audience what they should have already known. And it does lead to a great shot, which is a shot of him looking at her ass,
Yeah.
right as they're saying every hero has a, has a, what is it called? Like a flaw or like the one thing, and he's just looking at her ass. That's beautiful. That's so on the nose. It's great. He's just looking at her ass, and you're like, every hero has a character flaw that leads them down this.
Oh my God.
And she is fucking cute.
Yes.
She's very cute. Now,
Is she get your sister's head chopped off? Cute.
I think she is. Well, your ugly sister's head chopped off. your sister who you kind of won. But the other question is, like, I know this movie's about grief, but do they? And the idea is that, like, he's like, I know you miss your sister, and she, like, they all miss the sister, but, like, do they really love the sister? Wasn't she just the spirit of a demon? Once again, we love this movie, but
she wasn't really the life of the party.
Yeah. like, are we? Is that a stretch that they like really like? I mean, I guess they. It's first of all, it's hard to like ugly people in movies and in life, and but it's like, are we like, does the brother really miss her?
I think it's more just about his, like, you know, transcendent guilt.
Yeah, I guess even if you don't miss her, you might feel a little bad about.
A little bad. I kind of messed up.
Now let me ask you this though. I'm not like an Easter. I'm not too much into the plot yet, but I had a thought this time that maybe the girl was part of the coven for a second.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, she's staying in the treehouse where, like, you know.
No. The
high
cute
school girl.
Well, just for a second, when she looks at him for so long. Like, she's like, and then she turns around and you kind of see her smile a little.
That's interesting.
And I was like, is she like part of this?
Yeah. Well, someone said, I was listening to some podcast where they said that one of the kids from the class is one of the Satanists.
Yeah,
later.
that's apparently the kid when they're smoking weed. Which, by the way, if this movie is a PSA for anything, it's if you accidentally decapitate your sister, take a break on the weed because you may get a panic attack.
Switch to CBD gummies.
That's a cocky move to have you decapitate your sister, have your mom find it, and like a little while later, just taking a big hit of a blunt. Or a big hit of a bowl. That's a pretty cocky move. It'd be weird if you didn't get panicky. I think that's the ultimate PSA. If you decapitate your sister, take at least 2 years off food.
Go to nicotine lozenges or something.
Maybe Xanax. Maybe go the other way.
Yeah, right.
Don't do something that will make you panicky, even if you didn't decapitate your sister.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kid's ponytail in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which another reason this movie is awesome is that conversation is a good conversation under the bleachers.
Yes,
like
yeah.
he is good at writing kid dialogue.
Classic,
and that's pretty
weed
hard.
conversation, yeah.
And you don't have that in other horror movies
For sure.
I don't know if you've revisited Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's
Not recently.
it's some bad dialogue. But so like. Yeah, that kid's ponytail, they say, is in the end. So he's part of it. But he didn't really...
He doesn't really do anything.
He doesn't do anything. And B, I don't know if, like, I fully believe... I don't know. Like, I guess it's the same ponytail, but, like, could that also just be someone else's a ponytail? I don't know.
Well, there's not a lot of ponytails in Utah.
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah.
You're right. Never mind. So they... So wait, where are we? Oh yeah, so they
go to the party.
They go to the party, and
she has the cake.
Yeah, there's a shot. The most unbelievable part of this movie is that hot girl would be just sitting alone on a couch. she's literally alone on a couch, and there's like 12 dudes just like ignoring her. Like, is there a witch's spell where like she's actually not attractive and only he thinks she's? Is this a Shallow Hal situation? She's literally a cute girl at a party with a bunch of dudes, and they're all ignoring her.
Well, as someone who spent my life being at parties and only trying to make my friends laugh, I do relate to this. I'm just like,
relate to that?
You have this girl who has a huge crush on me sitting in the corner, and I'm just like, trying to do bits, just like.
I also felt like the way they filmed that party, it also felt like a soundstage. A couple of those shots seemed so like a fake aesthetic, like they were like the camera seemed like the way he comes up to her, it felt like once again like a diorama that they're filming into.
Yeah,
so I wonder if that was a soundstage too, because they go in, they have that funny little banter. It's all great. I mean, like to write a movie about kids smoking weed and not have it be like I mean, Alex Wolff is also just a great fucking actor.
He's so good.
He's so good. They fucking got. Why can't other horror movies just get great actors?
I know. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be top priority.
And then he goes to smoke weed with her, and then the kid, she eats the nuts, which is just such. It's just such great screenwriting.
I mean, it was so stressful.
It's incredible. And it's just the setup. Showing him lust after her, showing the weed, showing her nut allergy, seeing these elements kind of have a collision course.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in Seinfeld at the end where the subplots have a collision course. Mm-hmm. It's just such perfect fucking writing.
And it's also the score. Everything is just building the
score
tension.
is amazing.
The tension gets built up so well where you were freaking out.
The score by, I forget his first name, but someone Stetson. It's incredible fucking
It's
score.
one of the best horror scores.
It is. And it's played so much of the movie. It's like... Every horror movie that's like, I guess they just gotta be like, well, I hope this score is good because that's gonna decide whether
it's
it's
a huge part of it. I noticed, just at the end, the score when like they're doing the Hail Paimon part.
Oh,
it's so good. I'm just
so
like, this
good.
is just a great piece of music.
Well, it's beautiful and it's joyous, and this is what makes Ari Aster really disturbing. Like, he doesn't always side with the victims in terms of the aesthetic of the movie. Like, at the end, it's basically a happy ending for those witches. The same thing happens in Midsommar. Midsommar is like, we are terrified, but it's all done pretty joyously, as if the movie was made from the perspective.
Cult members, for sure, yeah.
So he does know how to do almost that, like, let the movie be gaslit or be like fall into the subjective reality of the bad guys.
Yes,
you know, because that is just like a happy ending. The music is just
got
gorgeous.
what they wanted.
These
got
characters that we don't know.
4 headless bodies kneeling in front of them.
By the way, another hilarious part. I know we should go right to the end, but he literally turns to the decapitated heads, and you just hear the voice of Joan going, "Hey, it's all right. It's all right." Like, it's not all right. It's not all right. Oh my God. So yeah, the elements of the script going into the decapitation are just it does what great writing does, which is it's surprising but inevitable. It feels like it had to happen, and that's kind of what, like, art is kind of like these witches. They're kind of moving the characters around, trying to an organic way to push them towards this, you know?
For sure.
And so, like, it's an interesting about the movie because the movie has a lot of, I guess, Deus Ex Machina kind of stuff where stuff where forces are pushing them towards, you know?
Yeah.
Which comes up very soon with the paint bottle dropping, where she clearly did not drop it.
Yeah.
And, like, typically I would call this cheating in screenwriting, where you just kind of like be like, I want her to do that. I'll just have this thing drop.
Yeah.
But it gets to this, like, higher message about how we're all just like pawns.
Yeah. For sure.
Like, if there is no free will, then we're all just pawns in this big machine, and there's nothing we can do about it except realize there's no free will.
Slowly march towards death.
And this movie kind of just says that.
That is kind of the point.
Doesn't really offer anything else.
Yeah. I
mean, like, it's so upsetting.
Yes. But that's why it's great. That's why we remember it. You know?
I mean, yeah, and I think Midsommar is a more perfect movie. Midsommar, to me, like, the story just all works perfectly.
Yeah.
This is a movie where he said it's 2 different halves, and whenever you hear 2 different halves, you're like, that's never a good thing.
Well, I remember people didn't like the last 30 minutes when it came out. I remember that being kind of a...
It's tough, and it's a testament to the first 30 minutes, where it's like, the first 30 minutes are so great that it became a classic, even though people were very divided on the second half of the movie.
Yes. And I just remember just being so along for the ride. I'm just like, I have no idea what is happening, and I will enjoy whatever it is. I
like it so much more now that Scorsese says he's a great director. No. Well, I do. I've always heard Scorsese say about Vertigo, like, it's a silly story, but he uses that to get to these, like, bigger truths. Mm-hmm. And ever since I've heard that, people make fun of me on this for, like, I'm too literal about movies, and I've liked horror movies more now that I've given up a little on that literalism. Yeah. But, like, it was hard for me watching the movie the first time, because I just remember thinking, how is he not going through how's he not going through psychiatric counseling?
Yeah.
B, like they can't move on from this. It's not like something you can move on
For
from.
sure. Yeah.
And then C, I was like, the setup of the witches seems so forced the first time I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you can't just have a box with a book in it. Like, I don't know. There's something about that. Someone told me afterwards, it's just not true. Like it was a different screenplay that he added all this shit to, which is not true.
Oh, really? Yeah, I never heard
It's
that.
that it is all there. Mm-hmm. It's in the line in the class. All these signs they're ignoring,
Yeah.
Though it's hard to really be like, hey, I see that light. Clearly they're trying to decapitate my sister to put her spirit in my body.
I think some of that is the comedic stuff too. Some of how like obvious it is with like the book, and all that.
Yeah,
it's like an underlined thing that says Paymon. It's like some of that. I think he's being funny. When he
I
does
do
that.
think so. Coming back on it now, I do think what I thought was a flaw. It's the same way I actually feel about Emilia Perez. I actually like that movie, and I think people are making fun of it, but they don't realize it's like aware that it's ridiculous.
The sex change thing. I watched it, and I was just like, it is funny how it really,
it's clearly aware. You can't do that without being aware on some level, you know? And there's a campiness to it, but there's definitely like parts where you're like, did he just is he aware the story is ridiculous and it's really just about the psychological underpinnings?
And I think Beau is Afraid, after seeing that, it makes me think that it's more his sense of humor to do that stuff.
Yes. And it's similar to Beau is Afraid. Actually, they're all similar. They're all a plot to the characters.
Yeah.
And the plot succeeds at the end.
Yeah.
And they have no control. If you look at it, they all end that way.
Yeah.
And then there's all these Easter eggs to who was involved. Apparently he said that he was upset that people didn't. He had so many clues in Beau is Afraid that people didn't get. I personally thought psychologically it kind of was saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's tough for a 5-hour movie, and also what made his other movies great is that they feel real on some degree, but that felt so surreal.
Well, I thought Beau is Afraid. I loved the first act and I loved the third act.
Oh, interesting.
And I hated the middle.
But that middle is 3 hours long.
Well, that 40-minute with the animated and all that stuff, I just couldn't.
I just saw
I couldn't get it.
Well, it's so surreal that it loses a little of its weight because they can kind of do anything.
Yeah.
And B, it's I get the whole he can't be a full adult because his mother's controlling him, but it kind of just says that the whole time. It doesn't really, to me, it didn't really go anywhere outside that. It just stayed there. But apparently there's all these Easter eggs, which I believe a lot of it is the mother planning stuff. And I believe if you looked at those pictures at the end, much like in this, I think you'd see people from the movie who are part of the plot, right?
From the beginning, yeah.
So all his movies are kind of the same story. It's a plot.
Yeah.
Taking care of these fucked up characters who can't communicate. And then succeeding at the end, fucking them up.
Yes, yeah.
And I guess the plot is essentially, you can always associate that with the director. The director is, in a way, the Coven of Witches. He's the one manipulating them into this plot, So much like her being creating the miniatures.
Yes, yeah.
That is we kind of we deal with having no control by having control over our own little miniatures.
We do our own little thing, yeah.
So, all right, so she gets decapitated. They have that dinner scene. Or the first ahead on the diorama where the father's what if he sees that? Which is insane. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up, an objective view of the accident.
It's just an objective view. Why are you doing an objective view of the accident? Also, it's funny, he's what if Peter saw that? It's maybe he doesn't want to see a miniature of his daughter's head. Is it possible he doesn't want to see that?
Severed head, yeah.
Then the dinner, this is people's favorite scene, I think. And
it's just Tony Collette masterclass.
Yeah.
It's such great acting.
It's great, and it does a trope, but it does it well. There's a trope in movies where whenever someone's about to scream out a bunch of shit, the other person's just say it.
Yes,
just say it.
Yeah,
just say it. But there's something about the way it's done where he's release me, where it's funny because that's also what's happening.
He just he wants her to say the worst possible thing. He needs her to.
So it isn't this bullshit It isn't this bullshit no, because usually in movies it's the opposite. This person's don't say it, don't say it, don't say it.
Yeah.
I never liked you.
Yeah.
But this is he wants her to say it, And he's saying, release me, which is what happens to him. He gets released from his body, you know? And she just yells at him for basically blaming him. Have you ever seen In the Bedroom?
No.
Reminds me of In the Bedroom, the parents lose a kid and they both start, like, they're quiet the whole time throughout the movie. Like, it's actually very similar. The kid dies, and then they don't really talk. And then somewhere around the same point, they both yell at each other in this explosive way, you know?
Yeah.
And then the dad goes, I'm going to stop this. So he says that very late in the argument. She, like, said everything.
Yes, there's really nowhere else to go.
Yeah, she said, like, she's like, I hate you fucking piece of shit. Yeah. And then the kid says, what about you? And the dad's like, I'm going to stop this. And the kid's like, whoa, she got to say her thing. And now, okay, so you like the last half of the movie, the kind of crazy part.
I do. You know, something about, first of all, when Ann Dowd comes into the movie, who I think is one of the great characters.
She's great, yeah.
Point of pride, she went to the same college as me.
Oh, really? What college?
Holy Cross. But
okay.
She's one of our proud
nice.
alums. Yeah,
nice.
her and Clarence Thomas.
Oh.
But I think she is so good at being this crazy element, and everything she does is so captivating to me. Like her seance scene. Me and Luke Moniz used to quote it all the time. We just go, oh, Louie.
It is amazing. I mean, her acting is once again letting this crazy shit just work.
Yes.
And that first shot of her, that great shot, it's one take of her leaving the grocery and seeing her.
I love that.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's happening too.
yeah. And it just feels so real.
Yeah.
And it's just like, horror movies are really hard because a lot of times you're like, this shit's stupid, they shouldn't do it. But you believe that she would go there.
That's what I was just gonna say is like in that crazy state of grief, if just like a convincing woman is like, oh, you have to come back to my house. Like, that's the one time in your life you would go to the house.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an interesting with horror movies, the ghost factor, because, you know, obviously it's funny that we're scared of ghosts because you think not having an afterlife is really the scary thing, you know?
Yeah.
And ghosts are like reassuring. But so a lot of times in horror movies, there's a ghost. In reality, those characters will be like, oh, this is nice. There's an afterlife. But in this, they're actually not reassured. Like, it's the opposite. Like, it feels fake and it feels scary.
Well,
and
it's
creepy.
a great, like, devil magic trick where she shows her do it, and it's very scary to Toni Collette, but she also has the kid writing "I love you" on the chalkboard.
But it almost is a comment on that, like, in the other movies when the ghosts say that. Like, if it was real, they wouldn't say "I love you."
Yeah.
They'd be like, can you get my baseball hat and put it in the cemetery? You know what I mean? Like,
well,
or
that
be an
part where Toni Collette is like, has the spirit of Charlie inside her. She's just like, Mom,
well,
I'm scared. Mom, where am I? That part is so good.
So real.
Yeah.
So
that's what you would be doing.
Yeah.
What is going on?
So that first scene is almost making fun of that John Edwards of shows.
That's what I was trying to think of. The name I was trying to
John,
think of.
Yeah, because they bring out the ghosts always say, "I always love you." It's like, why do they have to go back just to say the thing they already? It's just stupid. You know what I mean? And we know how people are. It wouldn't be that in real life. John Edwards would bring back a ghost, and the ghost would be like, "You took money from me, and you didn't give it back, and I want you to put it in a trust for my son." Okay.
Yeah. It's funny too. Everyone's like, "Oh, now I have closure." But
it's like, "I love you." That's it.
Yeah, he probably said that.
That show was real. Like, I can hear your husband. He's saying, "Who's this guy? You're fucking my best friend." What the fuck? But it's always just, "I love you. I never stop thinking about you." So, like, that part is so scary. When he says, "I love you," you're like, there's something so wrong about this.
It's so, there's something so twisted about her from the start.
Which is hilarious. Yeah. It's also hilarious, too, that, like, it's actually set up. It's not really her kid. Her kid.
Yes. Yeah.
Or grandkid. But it is magic.
Yeah. And that was also a part watching the movie the first time where it's like you really didn't know it was going to, because the beginning horror is something really is grounded in reality.
Yeah.
And then they do the seance and there's all this supernatural stuff,
so
which
bizarre.
I didn't know was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then they go into the satanic cult stuff. It's just like they cover like 3 different types of horror in the same movie.
Yes. The first part's just a horror of, like, real life.
It's it's
just Manchester by the Sea horror.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, for a horror movie to work, it needs to deal with the horrors of real life.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's why most horror movies are kind of nice escapism.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, sure, I can think about this instead of real fears, like that I might not make money in my career or something. But, like, in this is like, this is not escapism.
Yeah.
Like, you can't watch this. Like you're not escaping.
No.
And then we get into the part where the dream where she tells him I
never wanted to be your mother. Yeah, I tried to. Not I wanted to get an abortion. She tried to get a miscarriage.
What do they even mean? And she's like, I tried it different ways.
She goes, yeah, I did everything they told me
like
not
on a trampoline, smoking a cigarette. What's she doing?
Eating a bunch of pork. Like, I don't know what they tell pregnant women.
Sushi every day.
Yeah, right. It's just like,
but that part is also amazing because it gets into when you go back to the metaphor, I'd say, of schizophrenia. She wanted to kill him. So in the horror, there's a metaphor and then there's the horror realm.
Yeah.
In the literal horror realm, there's clearly a part of her that wants to kill him because she knows on some subconscious level there's some demonic thing that's going to happen to the kid, and she's trying to kill him to save him. That's what she said. She's like, I was trying to save you.
Yeah.
But then it works as a metaphor. I want to save you by not having to deal with the mental illness passed on by not having you be born.
Yeah, right.
Kind of the whole Greek, better to have not been born at all.
There's something I love about the way she plays that scene too, where she's getting scared by the things that she's saying.
Yeah,
which is like, yeah, I mean, that I've like you never see someone like she's just like saying things out loud and then immediately being like frightened at her own thoughts.
There's no, I mean, once again, the thing that works ultimately about this movie is showing this family never really communicating.
Yeah,
and even that scene of the dining room table, it's not really, it's anger, but it's not like real communication. It's just like anger, you know?
Yes, yeah.
And like they never fucking, it's really a sad thing about a family where they never like, you always like, to me the sad scene is when he's high under the bleachers and he has to have the kid hold his hand.
Yeah.
It's like he get no family support, so he has to have Tommy hold his hand.
What's the dumbest name I can think of?
Oh wait, right. I totally acted like I wasn't even thinking about that. But also, it's like it's just like something so, and also the kids are like, "What's wrong with you? You just had your sister's head get cut off, and now you're like, what's the deal?"
Yeah, what is the grace period for that? How long till someone has to be cool again?
So, and now we get to the part. All right, so this is the crazy part, which the first time I saw it, I was like, this is just bananas.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's so bananas, you're like, where am I? What am I watching?
I mean, you find the mom's headless body in the attic.
Which, there's a couple parts I truly love in this, and I've grown to like it a lot more. One, I love how it's like, is she going crazy? Is she not? And that whole spell is broken by the dad going up and just screaming.
Yeah,
that scream, we're like, oh! That scream signifies, oh no, this is not made up. Yeah. And he's like, what? It's also just funny to have something crazy happen and finally have someone else be like, he comes downstairs like, what the fuck is that body? it's like, yeah. And then it's like,
and he's rewarded for finding out the truth by immediately getting set on fire.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because now we're at this place where like everything in this movie, from a script perspective, is Deus Ex Machina on some level. The creator is he can kind of do what he wants.
Yes.
You know, and like oftentimes in movies I don't always like that. I think it works sometimes very well. It definitely works better in horror movies, you know. Sometimes I think in like the It movies, I don't like it just because like literally he can just do whatever he wants at any point. So there's
like
no
Pennywise or something?
Yeah, like it's just a haunted house. It's just like like he can just be anyone, do anything, you know. Yeah. But there is just like interest. I think it's a joke again, in a way, which is that she finally thinks she understands it.
Yeah,
she finally thinks she understands the rules. She's like, whoever throws it in, it'll light me on fire
because it did the time before.
And not only is it that the rule, because it's just the one time. Yeah. Not only is it simply that she's wrong and like if he threw it in, he'd get caught on fire. Yeah. It's that she throws it in and he still gets caught on fire. Like there's no logic to that at all. Yeah, like it's not even whoever throws it in.
For sure.
She throws it in. Why does he explode?
And then he immediately, he's like 4 feet from the fire too. He's not even
like there is no rule there. Yeah. And that's the joke of the movie.
That is like a cartoon thing.
Yeah. It's like, it's because it'd be one thing. I mean, it would make sense if he threw it in and he lit on fire. She's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And then she's like, as he's burning alive, she's like, it was whoever threw it in the fire. I thought it was just me every time.
Yeah.
But she throws it in, he lights on fire.
Yeah.
That's got to be a joke. Just the fact that, like, whenever you even try to understand life, it doesn't. What if you even try to understand the crazy rules? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he is a prankster, little Ari Aster, isn't he? Like on some level.
Yeah. I mean, he's a little imp. He's a demon trickster.
Well, it's like the Johnsons. He's just thinking of the worst fucking thing ever.
Yes.
There's a like sick like.
It's a maniacal.
Yeah, maniacal. Yeah. And there is that in this movie in that moment. Like he lights on fire, and she's like, "Why?" You gotta have to love the craziness.
I mean, that's such a cool shot too.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
I don't know what it is, but it's the Pink Floyd album cover.
Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah.
And then the kid wakes up. And at this point, I think the way Ari Aster explained it, he said it's like a family drama that becomes a nightmare, which is what happened. I mean, it basically goes completely into La La Land, which is why maybe some people don't like it.
Nightmare logic.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't have. It becomes like almost David Lynchian, in ways.
And then she's crawling on the walls.
Yeah, and then it's just like, and there's a part of me that's like, all right, I guess I'm not really watching like. Definitely not watching a traditional story anymore.
Yes.
Like it doesn't matter what they do.
For sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like in a traditional story, you're like, most horror movies are like, there's a choice or an action they make that like, you're wanting to see if they make that. You know what I mean? Exorcism. The Exorcist. You want to see if they get the devil out. You want to see if Rosemary figures out the plan. But at this point, it's just pure chaos.
I mean, there's another truly shocking moment, her sawing her own head off. I just I have not seen something like this.
I have not, and that's where like it's so fucked up.
The head plops.
The head plops. It's so fucked up, and then just the way it gets into like it really makes you like it gets into the disturbing nature of decapitation.
Yeah,
not just like the head. You know what it was too? I think Ari Aster, and this is what makes it maybe a horror genius. He's like. The most disturbing thing about decapitation is not the head; it's the headless body.
Yes. Sure.
And so at the end, when you see them praying as headless bodies,
also her doing it with piano wire too.
Yeah,
like, if it was some kind of saw, I think it would be less effective. Something about just the sound effect.
Yeah. It is insane, and you're like, this is like an Oscar-nominated actress sawing her head off. I'm like, how did they get her to do this movie?
I did have that thought where I'm like, how did they film this part? I'm just like,
because she's like pretty much a very prestigious actress. I mean, she did Sixth Sense, but this is like Sixth Sense is a great horror movie, but it's a Spielberg horror movie.
That was the first horror movie I ever saw, Sixth Sense, and I got so scared. I was 11, so I was young. I got so scared I couldn't sleep in a room alone for like 2 weeks.
I love it. Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
It's great. I will say, if you want to extinguish that fear, just rewatch it. If you rewatch it a second time, it's just a bunch of ghosts trying to get help. For sure.
Yeah. I think it was also something about me being like the same age as Haley Joel Osment. I just like felt too real to me.
I love that movie. I think Bruce Willis is so incredible in that movie.
A movie that does undercut its one of its characters like Fight Club, but
but I actually think that works.
Yes, yeah,
because you know what it is. It's perfectly set up.
Oh, for sure.
I think for a twist to work, it has to really risk people finding it out, but then they don't.
Yes,
in Fight Club, there's no way you're gonna like be like. There's no way to think of that ending because it's a bad ending. I guess that's the ultimate twist when it's bad. You're like, I was hoping for better.
Saved by the Pixies.
Yeah. Yes.
If I ever make a movie with a twist, I'm just playing Where's My Mind at the end.
That will make it work.
Well, the song's cool.
So we get to the final image, which is just pure insanity. And like in terms of excessiveness, it wasn't enough that you see her decapitated head on the ground covered with flies.
Yes.
You now see it attached to a mannequin, which is also like, and they get into this more with Midsommar. The desecration of bodies that he deals with is always very disturbing. Mm-hmm. And he talks about an interview like artifice, like he finds that really scary, anything that seems very fake.
Yeah.
And the idea of putting a real decapitated, decomposed child's head on this mannequin, it breaks the boundaries between what's a body. He does this so much in Midsommar. We think there's something naturally holy or deserving respect of our body in the boundaries of our body.
Yeah.
And he blurs those boundaries. And he does that so much in Midsommar where like the difference between bodies and vegetation gets really like blurred to the point where like people are like, it's like a head in a thing with stuff strung. You know what I mean? Like the desecration of bodies is so disturbing.
Very disturbing, yeah.
Very fucked up.
I mean, something about that just tableau too of the headless bodies, all three of them kneeling before it.
It's
just
so fucked up.
It is so gross.
It's so gross. It
like,
is so fucked up.
Yeah.
And then the real reveal that there's comedy going on, the last song.
Yes. Both sides now. Yeah.
Both sides now.
Yeah.
Judy Collins, originally written by Joni Mitchell. What do you think that's saying?
I totally forgot that happened when I just rewatched this last week. It was on Netflix, and I laughed so hard when that song
so
started
funny.
playing.
It is so funny.
Yeah, it's just such a perfect.
It is great.
Yeah.
Both sides now. I mean, you're seeing this from the perspective of the cult.
Yeah.
And it's a happy ending.
And it's a happy ending. Yeah.
Also, is this the difference between the metaphor and the actual horror of it, or like it's just it's all.
Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way,
Yeah.
one of the best things in the movie is that naked cult member when he first shows up in the house, the smile he has is one of the creepiest.
It's the guy from the funeral in the beginning.
Yes, yeah.
Which, by the way, I will say, like when I first watched it, I was like, man, they really force this witch thing. It just comes out at the end, but it's there.
Yes,
and there's actually so many. I think this is really a big thing in Rosemary's Baby. So many clues of something being wrong is in almost every scene of Rosemary's Baby. Mm. There's so much off shit throughout this movie that's like gaslighting, mindfuckery. Like
for sure,
you hear people in the house before they come in. At one point, you hear them in the attic. You see lights flashing all the time.
There's like the light that's like bouncing around the room. That's,
even when the guy's smiling at her, you see the light flashing.
Yeah,
it is weird that the. Toni Collette is never. She's like all these new faces. She never like wonders who are they. I get.
Yeah, if your elderly mother died and there were so many people,
wouldn't she be like, "What's the deal?"
That would raise a flag. Yeah.
Also, Joan is really banking on her not looking at, getting nostalgic and looking at old photo albums.
Like your best friend. Yeah.
I guess that's what the irrationality of. At the end, it's just like it's weird that she didn't know anything about the witch shit, but then it's just right away in this box.
Yes.
Like, did she not? And maybe there's just me being a literal idiot asshole, but like, has she not gone through that box?
Yeah, I guess.
Has she not wondered why she has a book about King Paimon? But I guess the whole not communicating with each other.
Yeah, that kind of explains that. Yeah.
But
you never asked what my book club was reading.
Only you would have known. You would have known the secret.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bonkers movie, and I will say the first 30 minutes are so great, and everyone is kind of in agreement. It's kind of like Psycho. Like you can make a good case that Psycho falls off after the shower scene.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say, at the time they watched it, I think that the shock of her being, the mother did carry it. That gave it an extra. That brought it back to life.
Yeah, and there was nothing like that had happened before in a movie.
Yeah, but now you're just kind of like, why are they showing the mom? It's clearly him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I also think when he gets killed on the stairs in Psycho, it's a little dated now, but I think that was probably pretty effective. I think that was very effective back then, but you're just like, going down the stairs. My friend said Hitchcock is a master of dated suspense.
That was great.
And it's, but so, like, Psycho, once again, is like this amazing first 30 minutes, and it's almost too good.
Yeah.
And the first 30 minutes of this is so good that you're like, it's hard for it to, like, know where to go from
where
there.
could you go from that open?
It's like too good.
For sure.
And it's like, but I do think, and yet I love the movie. It's like, it's not, the movie's a mess, but I love it.
For sure. It's just so entertaining, and so it just takes you on this ride. You have no idea what's going on.
No idea what's going on. The acting's great. And I just think that directing, like, he's not a show-offy director, and yet he makes you appreciate every shot.
Yes.
And he's not flashy, but like he will do wild shots, but always for the sake of the story.
There's a reason for it. Yeah.
And it's just like incredible directing. I really like visually the movie's just fucking stunning.
Yes. Yeah.
Stunning,
For sure.
And the whole idea of it being in a dollhouse, feeling like that the whole time, it's just like it's
it's the Wes Anderson thing, but in a very different.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I do think like we should go. This went way beyond it. I'm sorry. I hope you don't have anything to do.
Oh no.
Okay,
never.
Thank God. Honestly, I didn't think you did. I'm just being nice. No, but like, Yeah, it is just this movie that's like, yeah, it's a fucking mess, but it does. Wes Craven said, "What you want from a horror director is someone where you really feel like you're in the hands of a psychotic person."
Oh, that's such a perfect quote for this movie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You really feel like you're in the hands of someone fucked up.
Well, because there's so many times we watch a horror movie and they don't go for it.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And it's like, yeah.
That's why I respect about him. You know, you see him in interviews. He's just this like mild-mannered Jew, short little Jew who's like very like quiet and polite.
Yeah.
But he takes such risks. Like I'm in awe of the risk he takes. I mean, that movie about the kid, the short film about the kid raping the dad.
Yeah.
It's like the balls. Usually, the people who have that balls aren't good craftsmen. Like it's the guy who did like the what's it called, the Human Centipede. Like he has the balls to do that
for sure,
but he's not a great craftsman.
Well, I think you should revisit.
But this is like the balls to make a movie that I guess especially the comedian. I want everyone to like me. The balls to make shit where people will hate it.
I mean, especially that short film where it's like if his mom is still alive, I don't know, but imagine being like, hey, I made my first short film. Like,
yeah, it's insane. It's fucking. You're talking about the
Johnsons. Yeah,
it's insane. And this movie too. I mean, to have the miniature in the beginning, which could confuse people.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It works. I mean, I could see people being like, wait. Are we in Is this a Little Shop? Oh no, I mean, How Did I Shrunk the Kids kind of movie. But like, and then the balls to the walls-ness of it, and he's just like, I respect him. I think he's legitimately daring while being like a great craftsmanship and being great with actors.
Honey, I Sacrificed the
Kids. So usually, thanks for doing this. I mean, I know we went really way over time. It's just such a fucking.
Oh, it's a great movie. Yeah.
Do you have other things you wanted to say about the movie?
No, I mean, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
I think this was right around the time when, people started using the term prestige horror and it kind of became a thing people don't like because it became overused. But I think this movie holds up so well as just like a genuinely shocking artifact that like every part of is great.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned obviously the directing, the score, the acting, like it's just like it's 4-quadrant. Everything about it is good to me.
And it's prestige, but it brings fucked up shit from the really disturbing like underground horror movies. It brings that into the mainstream.
Yes.
Like, once again, an Oscar-nominated actress. Like I assume she's been. She was nominated for 6 Sense.
She was nominated, yeah.
But an Oscar-nominated, respected actress just cutting her head off with
piano wire. Yeah.
But then again, Silence of the Lambs, Sir Anthony Hopkins removing someone else's face on his face.
Yes.
But like it is. Yeah, it is just a fucking. Yeah, it did begin this like prestige horror thing, which is a cycle. It's kind of bullshit.
And now a lot of the movies, A24 horror movies, kind of suck now.
And
it's like,
it's a cycle. Perlman, comic Dan Perlman once said, like PR is all just about pretending something old is new again. So eventually, like my example is like Ellen was the first lesbian like comedian. Then Carmen Esposito was the first lesbian comedian, and then she could go on Ellen, and Ellen would be like, "What's it like being the first lesbian comedian?" It's just you're just pretending, Gary Goldman did the first special where someone's sad, you're just pretending things. But like prestige horror, I mean, obviously we've had like Rosemary's Baby.
I mean, The Exorcist is prestige horror.
Yeah, Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby. The movie's just clearly ripped off.
Yes, yeah.
Like this, they're like, oh, it's something new. It's actually a brilliant mash of a lot of other movies, But it is like, it does feel like it does get irrational and crazy and feel like you're not in safe hands.
Yes, yeah.
And that's exciting,
I love movies like that where you genuinely don't know where it's going and you just go along for the ride.
Yeah, and usually they're just not this well acted.
Yes. There was one thing that you brought up, though, that kind of shocked me. Are you saying that the guy who makes these movies about his relationship with his mother is Jewish?
Yeah, apparently he's Jewish.
Is that true?
He goes full Jew and Bo is afraid. It's all like, his movies are so waspy. Alex Wolff seems Jewish, but his movies are very religious. And then he just reveals his fucking Woody Allen side so hard. I wanted to bring up one other shot, which I thought was interesting in terms of confusing the aesthetic of this being a set, of this being fake, is the shot of them at the cemetery for the daughter. The camera goes down.
Oh, like under the...
Yeah, but
that's very David Lynch, I feel like.
Yeah, but it's David Lynch, but it's also like, that's not a hole in the ground. So that is revealing like a set because the camera's just.
Yeah.
It's not just a set. It feels like honestly not just a set, but like what do you call it? Like a miniature where you have like the miniature fake grass that you can go under
because like terrarium.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no like at first you're like, is that a grave they're going down? But they're not. You know, they're going. So that is a moment where you accept it, but you're like, that is kind of weird that there's just it's just the grass just stops and the camera goes under it. Yeah. But obviously it's in like, I guess in Blue Velvet. But in Blue Velvet, maybe I'm wrong. In Blue Velvet, does it dissolve? I feel like it maybe dissolves a little or there's something.
I can't remember.
But maybe it is that. Yeah. And maybe there's a joke too. Hitchcock famously said he hates when a camera's in a fireplace. Because it's like, how would the camera exist in the fireplace? And he has one shot that's just from the fireplace. So last but not least, we'll say what I always like to say what this movie says about you. This is where I just roast the other person under the guise of psychological insights. This was tough because I know it's not like it's one of many favorite movies.
Yes,
know?
Yeah.
But, it's about passed down things, And what are you, Catholic?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of guilt passed down.
Guilt is definitely the reason I connected to this movie. Just the existential guilt, and like I think that's 100% why.
Just feeling Catholic is a little like I feel like it's a lot like Jewish.
For sure. Yes,
it's feeling guilt even if you did something wrong or not.
And that's the thing about this movie is he has like the highest possible level of guilt, and he actually did the thing, but it's like you just get that secondhand guilt that you feel no matter what, just for being alive.
Yeah, but that guilt. Like I have these dreams where I did something hard. I mean, it just feels like a nightmare, where you just decapitate your sister in a dream. And you're like, fuck.
I feel like I have certainly had dreams where I do something like unforgivable, and then it's like you wake up and you have them. I'm like, oh, thank God.
I know.
But in this, it's
which is like at the end where he's like, is it just a dream? Is it just a dream?
Yeah.
One time I had a dream where I was hooking up with my sister, and I was younger. And I remember in the dreams thinking, fuck, I can't really tell people about this, so it doesn't really count as a hookup. Anyway, that's for another time and another place. But Tommy, thanks so much. We really broke down this fucking movie. Do you have any plugs?
I have a special on YouTube that is called Smoldering. That if you search my name, you can be the 100th viewer. So check that out.
He's a great comic, very underrated. Is this the one you did at
Bell House?
Yeah. I was there, I think. This is the one you did at. Wait. Oh, maybe I missed this. Did you do another one at What's the one with the painting of the
Union Hall. Yes, Hall. I did one at Union Hall, which is also on YouTube.
I love that one. Yeah, what's that one called?
That one is called Who's Tommy?
Yeah. The great title.
And then so then I did one that I put out 2 years ago called Smoldering, where I've got a full band doing music stuff. Yeah. So definitely check it out.
Great
I'm
comedian.
Very proud of it. Thank you.
Great writer. Does great musical comedy, which is I feel like most of it's horrible. So
that's true. Yeah.
And for me, you can see me. I'll be at Colorado this weekend, Colorado Springs. I'll be at Royal Oak. I'll be at the Acme in Minneapolis. punchup.live/Raanan/tickets.
Raanan is fat and he's a Jew. He'll tell you something that you already knew. Your favorite movie sucks. Your favorite movie sucks. American Beauty or Forrest Gump, your favorite movie sucks.